Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Esoteric Wellness Blog. I am your host, Coach Kyle. So welcome, everyone. I know I've kind of slacked off a little bit on releasing these blog posts over the last couple of weeks. Just kind of been distracted preparing for my national board exams next month. So this trend might continue for a little while until that's done and out of the way. Just doing a lot of studying for that. So today I wanted to talk about, something I think a lot about, that once I've really learned to adopt this idea, it's really changed a lot for me. I just wanted to share it with everyone. First of all, the importance of perspective in everything. I mean, our perspectives determine our experiences. And if we're having a shitty experience, it's probably due to our perspective. I'm a bit of a physics nut. I enjoy learning new physics. I just think it's really interesting stuff. But in relativistic physics, which is Einstein's theories of relativity, he basically determined that, everything is relative to something else. And this is another way of saying we have to look at something through a perspective. So if we want to look at something traveling through the universe and we want to know how fast it's moving, what direction it's going, we have to measure it relative to something else. We have to assign it a perspective to know anything about it, to assign any value, any meaning to it. So imagine, we as human beings, we always have our own individual perspective, the way we're seeing the world, the way we're experiencing the world. So let's just throw you out in outer space and start set you on a path through the universe at some speed. From your perspective, the one moving through the universe, without a perspective of comparison, you wouldn't know you were moving. So there's a few ways you could determine that you're in motion. One easy, if you're moving past stuff like stars and planets and galaxies are moving past you as you're moving along. But even that's not enough to determine that you're in motion. You could say at the same time, all this stuff moving past you is in motion and it's moving by you, but you're stationary. If either were true, you would experience the same thing. Or both could be true. You're both in motion. Another way you could tell is if your motion, your direction, your speed was changing. So in this sense, you're comparing it through a perspective of through time. You're comparing one point in time to the next. And if that changes, you're going to feel that as a force. So this is why, like, the merry-go-round throws you off when it starts spinning fast enough. Your velocity and speed is changing, and that's imparting a force. When you accelerate in your car, it pushes you back in the seat. When you hit the brakes, it pushes you forward into the seatbelt. So that's another way you could tell. There's many others if we want to get into the nitty-gritty of physics, but that's not what this episode's about. But I just wanted to make the point. You need a perspective in which to view things from in order to determine anything about it, to assign any meaning or value to it. In our experience as human beings is no different. To assign any meaning, value to anything that we might experience, we have to assign it a perspective. Otherwise, without a perspective, it just is. And this leads me to the next element of what I want to talk about, which is truth. We spend so much energy and effort wrestling with ourselves, with each other about what the truth actually is. What is true? And as I just alluded to, the truth is only what is. The truth never includes meaning, interpretation. That's perspective, not truth. So if we want the truth of a situation, well, all we can say is what happened, what is, what was. But this leads me to another aspect of going back to physics, in that we can't truly know what is. There's something called the uncertainty principle, in that the more precisely you try to define what is, the more uncertain things become. So if I want to measure a particle, the more precisely I know its location, the less precisely I know its velocity, for example, and vice versa. And what quantum physics is telling us is showing us that we can't truly know what is, because it's a probability, it's an assumption, it's a likelihood. When you really want to get down to what is, we don't know. We can't know. And zooming back out to our human perspective, our human experience, everything's filtered through our brain. And we've all had the experience of playing around with optical illusions, for example, where our brain is making an assumption. It's filtering through a perspective, which in our brain's case is all our past experiences, everything we've learned, everything we've been told, our expectations, our beliefs about the universe and how it works. So these optical illusions are examples of when we catch our brain in doing this and making an assumption that's clearly wrong. But you have to understand your brain's doing this all the time with everything. Anytime you see something, that's your brain's interpretation of it. The information it's taking in and comparing it against everything the brain has learned. And it's creating an image for you to see. But that doesn't mean that what you see is what is. And again, we can find all kinds of examples when the brain is giving us an image that's incorrect. But most of the time it's close enough that, we're able to get by without issue. But again, it's a probability. It's an assumption based on a lot of different things. And also back to truth, these perspectives that we experience the world through, a lot of them are not our own, that we come up with. A lot of them have been given to us, forced upon us even by our society, our culture, our family, our upbringing, our education. But you have to realize that these perspectives are as well assumptions. They're not truth, because within them they hold meaning, they hold value, and not simply just what is, because again, we can't know what is. These perspectives are all decisions that someone made at some point, like, yes, this is the best perspective to take here. So, what am I getting at here? How is this helpful? How is this not just making us feel terrible? like, um, we can't know anything. Well, so much of our suffering is due to our attachment to these perspectives, to these so called truths. And once you realize this understanding, you realize that none of it matters because we can't know what's true and what's not. And we also, at the same time, know that all these truths being offered to us can't be true. So none of it matters. What's the point in being upset about any of it? And understanding that when we are upset, when we are suffering, outside of when, something's causing physical harm to our body, of course, but when we are suffering because of a perspective, it doesn't have to be that way. And oftentimes, I believe that our suffering is when our perspective is not in alignment with what is. That we're trying to force what is to match a perspective. And that, of course, is something we cannot do. And if we seemingly do, it's only an illusion. So the path to true happiness, to true peace, is letting go of our perspectives, not holding them so firmly, so tightly. And yeah, we can use this one or that one while it's serving us well. But as soon as it stops serving us, we can let go of it. Find a new one, create a different one. Because, as humans, we can't, operate in this reality without a perspective because our brain, like I said, automatically assigns one anyway. And that we might be able to find brief moments in like meditation or something like that where we can fully release all perspective, but we're not going to be able to navigate the world in that sense. But when we have this loose grip on our perspectives and be willing and able to let them go as soon as they stop serving us well, I think that's the ultimate freedom in this life. Acknowledging that none of it matters, none of it's the truth. We can't know the truth. I think seeking it, a better understanding of what might be true is a worthwhile endeavor, but we can't actually ever know the truth of what is. And do we need to? Could we even comprehend what is? I don't know. And this brings me to like the work I do as a coach is essentially I help people find new perspectives to serve them better. Oftentimes people come to coaching, they want to change something about their life. They're suffering from something in their life. And, a lot of times it's something like they don't feel like they can change. They don't feel like they're good enough, strong enough, capable of change. Or there's things in their way preventing them from changing. And it's not that through coaching they gain some new ability, some new knowledge, some new power or strength, so that they gain a new perspective. And now what they once thought was not possible, now they think is possible. While all along it was always possible, but their perspective kept them trapped where they were. That we all have everything we need already. But if we can't get to where we want to be, it's not our abilities holding us back, it's our perspective holding us back. And it doesn't matter what change we're talking about. Whether I'm working in the capacity of a health coach, we're helping someone improve their health and make changes that they didn't once think were possible, whether it's helping someone through chronic pain. Again, they were trapped in a perspective in which they believed they had needed to be in pain. They could not become free of pain. And here's a new perspective. It is possible to become free of pain. And that's all it takes. That's really what's happening. Our perspectives can trap us or they can set us free. And that real freedom comes from the ability to let go of a perspective for a new one. And even look at this new one that's serving us a little better in this moment, but understanding I could let go of that one too if the time comes, if the need arises. So I challenge you to consider what ways in which you're suffering in life and how that suffering is being driven by a perspective that you're holding on to, that you're attached to. Is there another perspective out there in which the suffering is not necessary? Because they're all just perspectives. They're not the truth and they don't matter. And this is something that I have really gotten in the habit of myself, like really considering the times when I feel upset, when I'm suffering in some ways. Like, how can I change my perspective without jumping straight to what can I do differently? Maybe I do need to do something differently. Maybe I do need to change what I'm doing. But one of the first things I consider is how can I look at this with a different perspective that might change the experience I'm having right now? So food for thought. Hopefully someone out there finds this useful. And it might be another week or two before we get another one out. Again, I'm kind of distracted at the moment. But I look forward to the next one. And as always, you are beautiful. You are loved. Until next time.